One of the biggest lies that I've heard from the camera gear industry is Blackmagic calling some of their cameras pocket cinema cameras, because I have never seen anyone carry one of those in a pocket. You know why? Because the 6K is the size of a loaf of bread. The 4K is smaller, but it's the size of a stick of butter. I don't care what anyone tells me, you're not convincing me either one of those is going into a pocket. Meanwhile, the iPhone is the camera that fits in your actual pocket. Dare I say, the cinema camera in your pocket. And before someone comes after me for calling it a cinema camera, let me just remind you that the people making a little movie called 28 Years Later, which has a decent budget behind it, decided to shoot it on an iPhone, and there was probably a good reason for it. Either way, when they introduced Apple Log into the 15 series, I kind of feel like that was this tipping point in solving the phone look, because it meant that as long as you have a decent understanding of color grading, you can get your iPhone footage to look almost like it's footage coming from some much more expensive cameras. And sure, there are still some drawbacks, like the smaller sensor, less depth of field, worse low light, ergonomics aren't going to be as good, and stuff like that. But the footage coming out of it can still look surprisingly crazy good if you know what you're doing. Now, I've been using my iPhone 15 Pro a lot ever since I got it at the start of 2024, and the more I've been using it, the more I've been finding myself in these situations where I leave my FX30 at home on purpose, unless I'm being paid to bring it with me to shoot something, or I know that there's something very specific that I want to be able to capture in the highest possible quality that's available to me. Not because I think that the iPhone is better than my FX30, but because I think that it's good enough, and in some ways it might actually be better as an everyday camera for a lot of stuff. It's easy, it's always with me, and it doesn't draw any unwanted attention to me whenever I'm using it. It doesn't scream, look at me, I'm filming something serious. With the iPhone, I'm just another guy holding an iPhone and nobody cares. I can shoot a bunch of stuff with it, like when I'm at the climbing gym, whenever I'm out hiking, when I'm traveling, if I need some B-roll for a YouTube video, behind the scenes for stuff. And there's just kind of a freedom to it, because I can use it for anything, and a lot of the time, the footage coming out of it can still fit in really easily with the footage from my other cameras. And there's also a lot less pressure to it, because whenever I intentionally bring my bigger camera with me, I subconsciously feel like I have to use it. I have to shoot something with it, or I brought it with me for no reason. But with the iPhone, it's not like that at all, because I have it with me anyways, and it's all just a lot more whatever. I just pull it out, I frame the shot, I hit record, and if I get something good, then I'm good. But if not, it's not a big deal, because it's not like I brought it with me specifically to shoot stuff. But at the same time, I don't have to feel like I'm settling because of how good iPhones are now. Now, if we're talking about everyday use, the default camera app is fine for whenever I want to just take a quick shot to remember something. But with that said, when I want to get the most out of my iPhone, I do use a few other things to get some more professional results out of it. First of all, I use the Blackmagic camera app because I want to have a little bit more control over what I'm doing, and it gives me access to settings that the regular camera app doesn't have. I also use a variable ND filter from Freewell, and if I could have only one accessory for my iPhone, it would absolutely, hands down, be a variable ND. This is just the one that I've been using nonstop for the past year and a half or so, and I absolutely love it. The build quality is great, the optical quality is great, it doesn't introduce any color shifts, and it just magnetically snaps onto the Freewell Sherpa case that I've got on my phone. And because it's magnetic, that means that I can put it on and take it off really easily whenever I need to, but most of the time I just drop my phone in my pocket with the filter still on it, because the filter itself isn't that big, so it's not really an issue to just keep it on whenever I know that I'm going to keep using it. Now, for audio, I usually just stick to the built-in microphones because they're already pretty good on their own. I know that they're even better on the 16 series, but I'm not about to upgrade my entire phone just for some microphones. But if I really need to, I can also use my Hollyland Lark M2 mics, which I got a while back because I do have the original DJI wireless mics, but I wanted something that's a little more simple, but still good as an audio solution that works both with my camera as well as with my phone. And these have been working really well so far. They sound surprisingly great, but they're also tiny, they are really light, and most importantly, they are extremely easy to set up. And if you've been following the channel for a while, you might have heard me say that I'm a huge fan of gear that doesn't get in my way, and these microphones are exactly like that. And then a few weeks ago, my friends over at Freewell were nice enough to send me their 1.33 anamorphic phone lens, and I've been messing around with it, shooting some clips here and there on my iPhone 15 Pro, and I've actually been really surprised by how good it is. I've known about third-party lenses for the iPhone for ages, but I've always thought that they were kind of a gimmick. But the more I've been messing around with this one, the more I've started thinking that I might be wrong about that. Maybe some of them are gimmicks, but I actually like using this one specifically. Now, it's obviously not going to give me the same look that I would get from an anamorphic lens on a bigger sensor, but I've actually been super impressed by the images coming out of it, because it still gives my footage the anamorphic feel and some of the characteristics of bigger and way more expensive anamorphics, but it just does it on my goofy, tiny little phone that looks really unassuming. And just to be clear, this lens isn't going to be like a daily driver for me. It's something that I use here and there for fun, but I don't use it all the time. And I definitely don't think that absolutely everyone should rush out to go and pick one up, because most people probably won't need it. And like I said, if you can only get one accessory for your iPhone, at least get a variable ND, and that's already going to make a huge difference for the quality of your footage. And then after that, if you want to have some more fun, you can look into extra lenses like the anamorphic from Freewell, or some of the other lenses they make, or just like third-party lenses from other brands in general. But with all of that said, from testing this lens over the past few weeks, there have been a few times when I'll look at a clip that I got with it and think, man, this really looks like it was filmed on a much more expensive setup, and I can't believe that I got it on an iPhone. And it got me thinking, at this point, cameras, even the ones on our phones, have gotten so good that it barely matters what you're using anymore. You can use the iPhone on its own with some super minimal accessories and still get great looking results. Or you can treat it as essentially just a sensor, and then you can rig it out with a cage, an adapter that lets you put big camera lenses on it, audio and video transmission systems, stabilizers. But it is so good that as long as you know what you're doing and what you're trying to do and how to work with whatever light you've got available, whichever way you go with it, you can get results that 99% of people out there would never know came out of a phone and not a super expensive camera setup. And I just think it's really cool that in a time when people are going back and forth about which camera is king, and someone out there is going, it's the Lumix S1 XR2, S12 or whatever, and then someone else is going, actually, it's still the FX3 because they filmed the creator on the FX3 and they didn't film the creator on a Lumix, so it's the FX3. And meanwhile, I'm just over here looking at stuff that I've shot on this thing, on my phone, going, damn, this thing is crazy. And this is just the 15 Pro. I know that the 16 series got some upgrades that a lot of people like, and I'm guessing that the 17 series that's going to be announced in a few months will probably have a bunch more of those. But even just the 15 Pro for me is already such an incredibly useful tool. Just to be clear, I'm not making this video to tell you to completely ditch your cinema camera and only shoot on an iPhone. I still love my FX30, and I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I don't really think that I'm going to need to buy any other camera anytime soon. Again, I obviously don't know, and maybe I end up being wrong about that in a few months, but that's just how I feel right now. There are moments when I want the dynamic range, the lenses, the ergonomics, and the workflow, and all of that. So there are absolutely a lot of situations when the FX30 still makes a lot more sense, and it's just the better choice. But the iPhone does something different really well, which is that it lowers the barrier to starting. If I randomly get inspired, or I see some nice light, or I'm in a moment that I definitely know I want to capture, but I don't have my FX30 with me, the iPhone is just there. And a lot of the time, the stuff that I get with it doesn't stand out as obvious phone footage anymore like it would a few years ago. And that alone makes it way more useful than people give it credit for, and it's exactly why, even after using it for a while, I still find myself appreciating it more and more as a creative tool after every time I use it. So that's why I think that the iPhone is now the new pocket cinema camera. Obviously, it might not be perfect for everything or for everyone, but when it comes to an everyday tool for creating content, I think it does a lot better than a lot of other much more expensive cameras. And in a time when people online are going crazy comparing specs between the newest release from Sony or Lumix or Canon or whatever, there are a lot of very successful creators out there that are opting to use something like this that's much simpler and quicker to use, but it doesn't really sacrifice any of the quality that you can get from it. So feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you think of the iPhone as a creative tool. Do you have one? Do you like using it? Which one is it? And if you're someone like me who's also got a few other cameras, what do you prefer using the iPhone for over those ones? And obviously, if you got any questions for me, you can drop those below as well. But yeah, that is all I got, and you can go now because there is nothing after this. I am not going to leave you with a profound realization or a lesson or whatever. I am just going to sit here for a little bit and try to think about what the title and the thumbnail are going to be for this video, which is pretty much exactly how I always do it. I sit down and I record the video, and then I try to figure out all of the boring stuff. And then after I'm done with that, I am probably just going to go and cook a lasagna. So yeah, see ya.